lecture 29, March 7th, 2009. I haven't seen you in a while, or more correctly, you haven't seen me in a while, but I hope you've been well. Today's lecture just got a couple of parts. I'll have some introductory comments. We'll look ahead just really quick as to what's occurring in this last week before spring break. And then I'll talk a little bit about today's topic, religious experiences. So first, some intro comments. Overall, really good job on the test. You all are clearly doing a couple things. Keeping up with the work, taking in all the class materials, which is the readings, the discussions, and the online lectures, and you're synthesizing it well. You're putting it together. I think as a class, you all did much better than last semester's class. So instead of me taking all the credit for that, I'll put the credit on you and just say you're a good group of students and doing well. Thank you for those who contacted me with either questions about their grades. And then thank you to everyone for that feedback on the extra credit portion. I really appreciate that, particularly because we're not in a classroom with each other all the time. That sort of feedback is helpful for me for thinking about the course. A couple of comments about that. It's clear that people would definitely like more time on the next test. So for the final exam, we'll add an extra 15 minutes. And I will not add more content that would fill up those 15 minutes. So expect a very similar test for the final exam, but we'll give you 15 extra minutes so you can really hone it and get the grade that you're looking for. Let's see, over spring break, I'm going to combine a couple of the discussion groups. Some of you are in really small discussion groups, 2 or 3 people, so I'm probably going to be combining some of those. The only difference you'll notice is when you log on for the first discussion after spring break, there will be more people in your discussion group, and so that's the only difference. With the discussion groups, please remember to always write a question and to respond to somebody else's question. There's been 1 or 2 discussion groups that are slacking on that. And I haven't had that be reflected in the marks that I put on those discussions yet, and I don't want to reflect that in the marks because it's such an easy kind of criteria to fill, and it spurs discussion. So please do that. And then finally, about the online discussions, some of you said you'd really like more of a kind of actual discussion in those versus kind of a one post and a reaction to somebody else. If you have ideas of how to make that happen, let me know. I'm willing to make some changes in the course, maybe shift out a quiz and do more of an online discussion on a topic or something. So if you have suggestions about ways that you've done maybe in other classes that you think would work to really do more of a give and take, let me know. I'd really appreciate that. Since the test, so the very first topic after the test we did was on basic kind of life stages of religion. You all did some of you did some just really beautiful sociological analysis of where religion is in the lives of your peers. And I noticed many of you kind of tipped over into making an autobiographical question. I definitely didn't write the question that way, but I appreciate your own kind of personal experience to this extent that it helped us understanding what's going on with religion. And some of you had some very interesting observations that had to do with your own group of peers or your own family background or the specific point where you're at in religion or in life and how that interacts with religious behavior or not. And for the most part, almost all of you got how to talk about this sociologically. So within religious audiences, they might have looked at college-age religious behavior and been judgmental or say that's not the way it's supposed to be. And some of you may believe that too, but what was good was to see you all being able to look sociologically and say like, well, it looks like a lot of people in this category aren't participating in religious behavior. Why might that be? Well, some of you talked about just you don't have the kind of the parents there harping anymore. Some of you said, well, it seems that like people in college are really busy and we just don't have time for that sort of thing. Others said, well, it seems that some people come and it's this time of kind of questioning, exploring other parts of identity. So you guys just did a really good job of kind of nailing how like life stage and the dynamics of life stage matters when it comes to religious behavior. And before I make it appear that we're all college aged in this course, because I'm definitely not, there were other people that also did a really great job saying, well, I'm in X stage of life, and this is what's happening in terms of religion with people in this stage. So overall, really nice job. In lieu of a lecture for that reading, I actually spent a lot of time trying to give comments to almost every single discussion post. So go back and look in there, and in those posts, I tried to answer particular questions that people had. So some people on test feedback said, hey, we ask a lot of questions and we don't get them all answered. So for that discussion of life stage and religion, I actually spent a lot of time putting answers onto online posts. So take a look at that. Real quick, looking ahead. Leading up to the exam, we did a lot of thinking about the core elements of religion, and we're kind of wrapping that up with this week where we just read some on religious experience. And we've also focused on the individual recently. The last week before spring break, we're gonna transfer back to just a red meat sociological topic, which is why do religious groups look the way they do? So moving a little bit away from the kind of that Durkheimian school and Weberian school of looking at rituals and beliefs and trying to understand how religion works to kind of keep a social group together and kind of cohere and point in a certain direction of life. We're going to move away from that and look at a very practical question of like, why do some religious groups, why are some huge and seem to be very popular in a society? Why are some small and seem to have what a lot of us might consider aberrant or abnormal beliefs? So what's up with that? And then after spring break, yay, spring break, we'll get into what I call the hot topics of how religion connects with society. So in the second half of the course, it's almost more of a religion and society course, which is where a lot of my excitement with religion comes out of. So we'll look at things like this idea of church and state, idea of religion and politics. We'll ask questions about how does religion interact with social movements for progressive social change, and then how has religion been regressive, if you will, or oppressive or violent in some instances. So the course will look a little different after spring break. The format will be pretty similar, but we'll get into much more kind of topical, less theoretical sort of work. I guess the last thing I should say is this lecture, and then I'll post another lecture on church and state. Otherwise, another lecture on church and sect theory, which will be posted for this upcoming week. I should just let you know that I'll be a little bit out of touch this week again because of some research I'm doing in Mexico. But after spring break, I'll be a lot more available if you need to get in touch with me. Okay, so religious experience. I had you read William James for this week, the classic writings on religious experience. And in some ways maybe confusing or seeming almost archaic in helping us understand religious experience. But before we dive too much into James, let's ask a question of, what do we mean when we say religious experience? What is a religious experience? What are some examples? So I was sitting back and trying to kind of come up with some examples, and I thought, well, a lot of times in American culture, we'll hear people talk about born-again experiences that might specifically be related to church. We might hear people talk about mountaintop experiences that are related to time spent outdoors, maybe in nature, or maybe that are related to artistic experiences of artwork or rock concerts. And so there's all these kind of different ways that we have culturally about talking about intense experiences. And for this week, what we're talking about is religious experiences, those that have a religious valence. You can think for a moment, for another example, if you've ever heard of the movie Contact, it's pretty dated by now, but it's a terrific movie. Jodie Foster stars in it, where she's kind of this kind of stereotypical, rational, non-religious scientist who has what we would call a religious experience. And it's an experience that took her out of the normal categories of thought, the normal categories of space and time, and in the course of the movie, she has trouble talking about it, has trouble making sense of it. And so that kind of qualifies, if you will, for a religious experience that we're talking about this week. Another example would be, if you remember a few weeks back, we read Victor Turner's work on rites of passages. And there